Hey guys! Welcome back to another episode of Art and React. I'm your artist Faye, and today we are reading Lord of the Mysteries, chapter 98 till 101. And yeah, also you guys are going to be seeing me working on my webcomic here. Side note, I know I've been promoting my webcomic at the end of every video that I post. But to be honest, I'm actually on hiatus as I work on more backlogs for my webcomic. Also, I changed my format from long scroll to page format because I want to someday own a copy of my own webcomic as a print, you know? So yeah, I was working on that and now you guys can see me work on some backlogs. Spoiler, I guess. If you guys are wanting to read my webcomic in the future, it's called Dreaming of Aurora and it will be available on Webtoon and Tapas. Anyway, back to the actual video. Let us get on with chapter 98. We left off with Melissa asking Klein what's wrong with him because he was stumbling out of his bedroom, I think, and to the bathroom with like sore muscles because he just trained with with Sir Gawain. Yeah, he just started his combat training, and after that to greet he went to meet all of the Nighthawks and to basically formally introduce himself as a member of the Nighthawks. And Melissa was like, "Bro, what's wrong with you?" We start chapter 98 with a continuation of Melissa's questioning Klein of what's wrong with him because why is he stumbling out of his bedroom. And Klein answered her with, "I have sore muscles." Because again, he was training with Sir Gawain, but Melissa of course didn't know that. So Melissa was like, "Sore muscles? How do you get sore muscles from drinking out?" Right? And when she asked that, wait, let me tell you guys how she said this. "Sore muscles? I remember you returning after dinner last night and you didn't do anything else. Does alcohol cause sore muscles?" So when she asked that, my mind went into the gutter. Instantly, I was like, girly pop. There's some ways for alcohol to cause sore muscles after a night's out, right? Imagine my surprise when, after reading that paragraph, the next paragraph, I realized that Klein was in the gutter with me. Let me read you guys Klein's thoughts. "Does alcohol cause sore muscles? Sis, that question can't help but make me have inappropriate thoughts." And oh my god, I was like, oh shit, Klein, you're also a little pervy, huh? So Klein explains to Melissa that he's taking on combat training for not necessarily the Nighthawks because Melissa doesn't know about the Nighthawks, right? But he is acting as a consultant, like a history consultant, right? And he's like, "At some point in my career, I am going to be hiking up a mountain or going on expeditions to look at actual ruins, and I want my stamina to be, on par. I don't want to drag the people with me because I am a twink." And Melissa was like, "But it's gentlemanly to be a twink. You've always been a twink, big bro. You've always been like someone like a professor, and professors are twinks, right?" And while I was reading that, I was thinking, Melissa, girly pop. I keep calling her girly pop because I love her. Melissa, girl. Klein is in his gym bro era and he doesn't want to be a twink forever. We have to respect that. He wants to have some gains. Also, I would like for Klein to have some cake on his booty, okay? Let him do his squats. So they continued their conversation until Klein has to, start getting ready for the day, and Melissa watches him struggle again. And she's like, "Do you need help?" And Klein told her, No, I'm actually fine." And then he straightens up and walks to the bathroom like normal. And Melissa thinks to herself, Since when did Klein become so pretentious? I almost believed that his muscle soreness was serious. And when she said that, I was thinking, he's not just pretentious, he's also very dramatic. He's such a drama queen. So, but when Klein was actually already in the bathroom, he actually said that, Jesus Christ, his muscles feel so painful. Because you know what? I bet Klein did not stretch after working out. You're gonna pull a muscle this way, Klein. You know you have to work out. You know you have to stretch after and also preferably before a workout, right? It's a gym thoughts, whatever 101. Yeah. Also, I can't help but imagine Klein doing a downward facing dog. Yoga stretches are really good. I often have back pain because I sit so much in front of my computer screen to, you know, work, edit, and draw art that sometimes I just twist my back. Like, I don't know, it just starts being painful, right? And whenever that happens, it's because I have a very stiff lower back. Like, I was drawing in a stiff manner, and when that happens, I just google, or well, wait, not really google, I search on YouTube, yoga for back pain, and then we do the yoga, and afterwards my back feels so much better. I highly suggest it to you guys. If you guys have back pain, just search for a way to like specifically target your back, like lower back or glutes and stuff like that. It's really helpful. Okay, so anyway, Klein went on to visit his mentor Cohen Quentin's office, but instead of his mentor, he actually found Mr. Azik. This is the scene that we see in the donghua where Mr. Azik was like looking out at the window towards a child, and then Klein comes into his office. But the thing is, Mr. Azik was drawing something suspicious on the wall, but in this scene, we don't actually see any of that. This whole office visit was actually very pleasant and not so suspicious, or I don't know, it doesn't feel as dark as in the donghua. Because really, it was a very casual visit. Mr. Azik did not seem very suspicious at all as I read this, except until he mentioned the being a seer, being interested in divination and stuff like that. So Mr. Azik gave him the information, like the book about the Hornaces, the Hornaces Peak, if I remember correctly. And he was like, because you're not a student of the Ko University anymore, you can not take it home. You can't take it home because it's like school property, right? So it makes sense. It's not like he just wants Klein to read it here because he's suspicious of Klein. And also at this point, I do believe that Mr. Azik has already been sussing Klein out as a beyonder, because he's like, I feel like he's already testing Klein here. He didn't mention anything about the sugar that Klein added into his coffee. Because again, in the donghua, Mr. Azik actually pointed out that Klein usually don't put that much sugar in his coffee, right? And Klein had to explain himself why he did that. And I'm like, when he did that, I was like thinking, can't a person suddenly have a new preference towards sugary stuff? Like, come on. So anyway, Klein read the things about Hornaces Mountain. It's basically the same information that we see in the donghua about people and their ancient nation and how they revered the darkness of the night, yada yada yada, and stuff like that. But here's an odd information that I think they kept out of the donghua, and that's the fourth information, and that's that researchers actually didn't find any graves at the ancient Hornaces civilization at the ancient Hornaces civilization. Anyway, the ancient remains in the Hornaces mountain range, the stuff there was really well preserved. So it was suspicious because it felt like people just ran away in a hurry and left everything as is, like dining plates and stuff like that. You guys know Pompeii and how everything was just left as is as the volcano erupted and people were covered in ash and soot. I was thinking, what if there's like a natural disaster like that happened and it affected the people in Hornacis? So I was thinking that, but then I was like, you know what? There's Beyonders and magic shenanigans going on here. There was probably a battle and people had to evacuate so that they don't get killed from by the Beyonders, right? That's a high possibility, I think. But then again, the Hornacis mountain range, it's a mountain range, right? What if it's actually a volcano and it erupted? But if that was the case, then they would definitely explain that it was a volcano, right? They would say that there was soot everywhere, there was ash, just like in Pompeii. But that's not the case, so that can't be it, right? So after Klein finished taking notes from the book, because again he can't take it with him, he and Mr. Asic had a small conversation. And Mr. Asic, this is pointed out a lot, and that's he keeps touching the inconspicuous mole under his right ear. And I kept thinking that's probably the way he turns on his spiritual side, just like how Klein always touches his glabella or whatever that is to enter spiritual sight mode, right? So I was thinking, okay, so he's definitely been observing Klein from the very beginning then. So they had a talk about divination and that Mr. Asic was interested in it when he was studying at the Backland University and that he dabbled a little bit with it. And he's like, there's this harmony in your fate, Klein. Just wanted to tell you that. And Klein was like, you're trying to out-seer an actual seer. So Mr. Asic gave him a hint saying that, hey, you know, there's something going on with your life and I think you need to look at all of the strange coincidences that happen in your life because it's definitely not a coincidence, you know? Just look at all the strange things that happened in your life. Yeah. So Klein was like, okay. And then he thought about everything that happened and how they're all possibly connected. And he's like, oh shit, this guy might probably have a point. And that's when Klein decided that, you know what, I should probably look more into this. And then he said goodbye to Mr. Asic and went on his way. So chapter 99 is called Red Chimney, and we all know what that means. But of course, if you're a novel reader, like you're a brand new novel reader and never watched the donghua, you also don't know what the hell this means. But anyway, so Klein went home and he's like, you know what? I should heed Mr. Asic's hint. And he divined if everything that's happened to him in the past couple months was because of Beyonder interventions and if it's like connected in some way, right? But his divination keep telling him that there's nothing wrong, they're not connected. And he's like, is Mr. Asic really just bullshitting me? Right? But then he remembered how the previous Klein thinks of Mr. Asic and that he's like a very dependable man and he doesn't just say shit just for saying shit's sake, right? So he's like, okay, how about I actually divine in the Grey Fog area? So he's like, you know what, why didn't I think of that sooner? So he went to the Grey Fog area and was like, okay, how should I confirm this? And then he did his divination thing and he was like the reason for Elliot's kidnapping, and it confirmed to him that it was like Beyonder shenanigans. So Klein was like, oh shit, and then decided to divine the true reason for Elliot's kidnapping. And while he divined that, he saw countless images, and one of those images was the red chimney, right? The dark red chimney. But before he could see anything further, the vision shattered because, you know, there was interference. Klein also realized this and he was like, oh, that's very odd. That's also kind of scary. He tried divining about all the incidents that happened in his life and if they're all connected. And there was just interference. He couldn't divine anything. And he's like, yo, what the fuck? Right? So he was thinking, we're kind of like puppets dancing on a string. And he was wondering, how can I explain this to Captain Dunes? Because I can just tell him that I found out about this because then he'll question, how did I know? And I can't tell him about the Grey Fog area because of course old Neil also knows how to divine stuff, right? And old Neil's divination also produced the same results as Klein's when he was outside of the Grey Fog area because again there's interference. So Klein was like, whatever, I'll deal with that later. And he decided to confirm if the sequence 8 of Seer is actually Clown because, again, it's like so out of left field. They're not connected at all to each other in some way, right? Seer and Clown. So his divination confirmed that it is indeed Clown. So he was like, okay, can you give me hints of how to create the Clown potion? And that's what we're going to be seeing in the next chapter because this is how the chapter ends. Okay, so chapter 100 is called Interpreting Symbols. In this chapter, Klein was divining how to get the clown potion, right? Like some hints about the clown potion. And he got this vision of Ray Bieber's apartment where he first saw a bloated cadaver for the first time, Ray Bieber's mother. I think that was her, if I remember correctly. So he's like, what the fuck? How is this a hint? What is Ray Bieber hiding? And he also didn't just see Ray Bieber's apartment. He also saw a warehouse with like brains in like jars and whatnot, and also a dead clown corpse. And he's like, what are these hints? Like, what is going on? And you know what? I was thinking, are those brains actually part of the church? Because I remember reading someone from the comment section explaining that the church are very sussy when it comes to like beyond their bodies, and I'll explain more in the future, but it's big spoiler, I guess. But yeah, so I was like, is that possibly the thing? Because what the fuck, right? So anyway, Klein was like, what the fuck? And then as he was contemplating what all of this could mean, he sees a vision of him in the past, like him with this chubby, wealthy man and a beautiful young lady with fishnet gloves, right? And he's like, oh my god, that's actually my old pals, Naya and Welch, right? So he's like, why is the divination showing me this? And then there's also another scene of Welch, I think, talking with two other guys, one guy with a black robe and another older guy. And he's like, wait a second, I know this one guy. That's Hannah's Vincent, the divination dude who almost killed me thanks to Melissa's friend. So he's like, yeah, that dude. Okay, so he's connected with us? What the hell? And then he realized, okay, wait a second. So I guess because Klein has always been wondering how the fuck Welch got the Antigonus notebook, right? And he's like, oh, is it possible that he actually got it from Hannah's Vincent? Because Hannah's Vincent isn't just a normal divinations here, right? He's not like a charlatan. He actually is probably also a beyonder, or he is also very, very integrated into the mysticism scene. So that's it. So Colin was thinking, why is it that everything points back to the Antigonus family notebook? What's going on here, right? So he was thinking that, and then he realized, what if actually the Zaratul, the secret order, Zaratul, whatever, is like enemies with the Antigonus family? But then he was thinking, why are they enemies with the Antigonus family? Because if they're allies, then why are they searching so hard for the notebook, right? So they must be enemies at some in some sort of way. So Klein realized, what if the Antigonus family actually has parts of the seer potion sequences, right? So he's like, oh, maybe that's why I'm getting hints, divination hints towards the Antigonus notebook, right? So he's like, okay, well, I can't really tell anyone about my findings because they will ask questions, and I can't really answer them properly because I did all of this divination stuff in the gray fog area. But he realized, okay, I really need to actually find that one guy Vincent Hannes was talking to, right? The old guy. So he's like, it would be really convenient if I could draw. But the thing is, he says here, I can't draw. During art class in primary school, I was always the one receiving the greatest criticism from the teachers. And while he was saying that, I was thinking, what do you mean, Klein? I saw your drawings in the donghua. They were brilliant. They were great. What the fuck? So it turns out that he uses ritualistic magic to draw. He himself doesn't really draw. He's like letting the spirit possess him to draw properly. That's actually exactly what he did after he finished divining in the gray fog area. He went and, did some divination thing where he didn't pray to the goddess of Evernight, the Evernight goddess. Instead, he prayed to himself, and he kind of possessed himself, I guess, and drew a portrait of the guy Vincent Hannes was, talking to earlier. So yeah, that is how Klein knows how to draw. But you know what? At least he's not using AI. So, good job, Klein? Question mark. Okay, so chapter 101. In chapter 101, he actually went to the divination club again in a more casual outfit, and he was mentioning that this outfit that he bought was so much cheaper than the one he usually wears, and he was almost crying tears of joy when he found that sale or whatever, when he bought those outfits, right? So anyway, he went to greet Angelica. And Angelica was a little bit surprised because she thought he'd come back a couple of days later, right? Because he doesn't really come on usual times. He comes randomly. So this is what Klein said to Miss Angelica. Good afternoon, Miss Angelica. I had a dream at noon. I dreamed about Mr. Hannes Vincent and matters regarding him. You know that, as a fortune teller, I absolutely cannot overlook any dream. It could be a revelation from the divine. When he was saying that to Angelica, I was thinking, oh damn, Klein is such a good bullshitter. Like, he really pulled that out of his ass just so he can explain to Angelica why he's there asking about Vincent. So Angelica asked Klein, what did you dream of? And Klein answered her with, oh, I saw Hannes Vincent arguing with someone, and he showed her the portrait of the guy he drew. And Angelica was like, this person looks familiar. I think I've seen him before, actually. Klein asked her, oh, when was it? Let me tell you guys how Angelica said it, okay? I can't remember the exact date. Maybe a month ago? I saw him send Mr. Vincent to the door and they were softly discussing something. I have a deep impression of him because of his thick and messy eyebrows, as well as Mr. Vincent's rare smile. So, when I read that, the first thing that popped in my mind, in my Fujo mind, was, oh my god, old man Yaoi? And then she described how that guy looked. She said that he had a pair of grayish blue eyes, and like most men his age, had little hair on his head. And I was like, oh my god, that dude is catching strays. Also, what is it with cuttlefish and balding men? I feel like he has something against them. Seriously. First, Captain Dunes, then there was Benson, and now this guy? That's 3. And there's like 1,000 plus chapters left. How many bald guys are we gonna meet in this story that's gonna be catching strays thanks to cuttlefish having something against bald men? Huh? So Klein asked Angelica if she met him again, like the bald guy, and she's like, Not really." And she's like, "You know what? If any other person showed me a portrait like this, I would have thought it was a policeman investigating this. But since it's you, Mr. Moretti, Mr. Klein Moretti, I have no doubt because you are a true seer. So whatever revelation you receive from your dream, I'm just gonna go along with it." That's basically what she said. And Klein was thinking, "Yeah, about that. I am technically a policeman." Oh, and then, okay, wait, I have to read this because it seems like it's very important, okay? This is what Klein said. "A true seer would understand how minuscule he truly is compared to the vastness of fate. We can only see a hazy corner, forever receiving revelations, but never answers. We must reflect upon them constantly and keep up our respect and fear. We must decipher these hints with caution and not see ourselves as the intelligent ones who have taken control of fate." So, he said all that, right? And he's like bullshitting Angelica. And guess what? When he said that, he started digesting part of his potion. And I was like, holy shit! Klein, you absolute genius, charlatan, what the fuck? He just... I don't know, it's just so funny to be like, whoa, okay. And then Angelica was like, "Oh, that's so nice." Because, a lot of the seers that come here, they kind of are arrogant. They lose respect towards fate. So, when you said that, that's really amazing, Mr. Moretti. Oh my god. She's like, I wouldn't say she's getting fooled because, again, Klein is a true seer, right? Klein keeps describing himself as a charlatan, but is he a charlatan if he is actually the real deal? Like, come on. Okay, so while they were chatting, Angelica and him, he was thinking about what Mr. Zaratul said, the guy that Roselle was complaining about in his diaries. And Mr. Zaratul said that once a Beyonder digests their potion, they will know, right? And he's like, yeah, it's very obvious actually. So there's no doubt about it. Okay? So they talked and talked and talked, and then Klein was like, okay, I need to go. And then he went to the Blackthorn Security Company, aka the Nighthawks, and he reported to Captain Dune. He showed the portrait that he did to Captain Dunes, and Captain was like, what is this? And Klein said, oh, remember when I said that I wanted to go to the divination club to see how people are taking Hannes's death? Well, I kind of stumbled upon this guy, this information that these two know each other, and I checked our records and apparently he's not there. So I thought that was suspicious, and I was like, you know what, let's take this to the captain, and here we are. And Captain was like, did you draw this? Because again, it's a great artwork, right? And Klein was like, yeah, I actually used ritualistic magic to draw it, so it's not really all my skills, but magic. I appreciate his honesty, but by the way, love that for you, Klein. And Captain was like, okay, we're gonna look into this and we'll figure out his name and whatever. So Klein was like, awesome. And as he left, he actually was thinking, I don't really need to know anything else besides his name because I can just divine where he is as a seer and using the gray fog area because, he's OP over there, basically. And he's like the best GPS tracker that you can find. Imagine dating Klein. He knows where you are, anywhere you are. He can divine whatever the fuck it is you're doing. If you did something in the past, he will know. Low-key, that's creepy. But at the same time, I'm thinking about what if in like the modern era, it's like we have here like a yandere Klein. I think that would be so funny, actually. Very interesting. I would read that fanfic, actually. Because he will keep like trackers on you. He'll put small cameras in your house just to know where you are and stuff like that. I know it's very psychotic and doesn't really sound like what Klein would do, but you know what? I don't actually know what Klein will be like in the future. If he's going to be like a total yandere psycho, or if he's still going to be his cutie patootie self. I don't know, but there are some people that are telling me that he's changed, you know. Anyway, Klein goes to the Evil Dragon bar, and oh my god, what a name! It's the bar that we went to. Well, not we, as if I was there with Klein, but it was the bar that Klein went to when he first wanted to meet with the Nighthawks. You know, the one where he entered an elevator that may or may not be going up or down or whatever. So that was the bar. Apparently there's like a it's an entrance way to the black market, the magic black market. So he went there because he needs to buy some stuff for himself. I don't know, some potions, herbs, whatever that he can use for rituals so that he can protect himself, because what happened with Selena, the friend of Melissa's, was a lucky break, because Selena has all these things that he would need for rituals, right? And he thought to himself, okay, I need to start protecting myself, and the best way to do that is to actually have tools. Because as a seer, he is kind of defenseless, right? Um, yeah, so he goes there and he meets this old guy called Swain. He's actually the boss there, and he is a friend of old Neil. So the thing is, Swain, he wasn't really introduced to us in the donghua. At least I don't remember, or he was like mentioned. Especially the fact that he was a former Tingen mandated Punisher captain and was part of the Imperial Navy. I don't think that was mentioned in the donghua. At least it wasn't mentioned in like a spoken way, but I don't know if it was mentioned in a sidebar on like a side card or whatever, and it wasn't translated because we didn't get translations for all of the introductions of characters. So he meets Swain, they talk, and Klein was like, oh, you know what, I have a question, Mr. Swain. Do you know this guy? He shows him the portrait of the guy he drew, and Swain was like, yeah, I actually have seen this guy before. And Klein was like, oh, what's his name? Please tell me. And Swain told him, I don't generally ask the names of my clients or anybody who enters my bar, because, this is a mysticism bar. Everybody likes their mysteries, right? And Klein was like, yeah, fair enough, okay. But what did he ask of you? Like, what was he doing here? So Sven was like, well, that guy was actually asking about the Hornazis mountain range. He was very interested in it. So this made Klein realize something. That back in the days when he was researching Hornazis himself, he tried to borrow a book from the Deweyville library, which, I'm surprised he has a library. The fuck? He tried to borrow a book from the Deweyville library about the Hornazis mountain range, but that book was already taken. And guess what? That person who took it was most likely that guy who is connected with Vincent Hannas. So yeah, that's the conclusion Klein came to. Okay, so while I was looking at my notes, I kind of realized that I blended in some conversations that happened in chapter 101 and 102, because they were both conversations with the boss, the bar boss, Swain. So anyway, it's both basically the same chapter anyway, like one chapter apart. Like, come on. So Klein was thinking, oh yeah, so researching the Hornazis mountain range, like research about the Hornazis mountain range, is actually very unpopular. Like, nobody gives a fuck about that mountain range. So that was the reason why he thought it was sus that somebody actually borrowed the books, like almost all of them, that he would need to research. Right? So he's like, oh my god, why didn't I connect these dots earlier? And Klein was like, I would be a really bad detective. He said, it looks like I have no talent at being a detective or acting like Sherlock Holmes. And when he said that, I was like, Foreshadowing? Because, as someone who watched the donghua at the end, and he basically, I guess, there was an introduction of more Sherlock Moriarty. I was like, excuse me? Already foreshadowing in chapter 102? The fuck? Okay. So, yeah. So anyway, Klein ended his conversation with the bar owner and went on to continue his shopping because he was saying I'm in no hurry to go to the Deweyville library to investigate who that guy is who took all of the books with him because I need to get my goods. He needed to get his tools and I don't know, herbs, whatever, and oils so that he can use the ritualistic magic so that he can protect himself. And you know what? Fair enough, because when he said that he doesn't need to rush, I was like, bitch, you kind of have to. But then he mentioned that he needs stuff to protect himself. So I was like, fair, okay, fine, go shopping, Klein. So while he was in the magic black market, he made eye contact with this dude called a demisol, who he describes as a monster, and I was like, who the fuck is this? I don't remember this guy. Is this guy relevant at some point? Because the only thing I remember about this guy was from the donghua, where he was, I don't know, pointed out by I think it was old Neil. He explained something that I forgot, and Klein did something that terrified this Ademisol, and now this Ademisol won't even look him in the eyes and just ran away as soon as he saw Klein. So yeah, so I have no idea who that is. While Klein was shopping, he overheard a conversation from a young lady and a shop owner. The shop owner was like, oh, this is actually a book about witches. And Klein looked at her and was like, oh, wait, this girl looks familiar. She was like, oh, it's that girl who was shivering in the public carriage. Like, strangely, I was like, wait, when did this happen? And while that happened, I was thinking, is this actually Trissy? Is this Trissy actually? Like, for real? Because Klein described her as the most beautiful girl he's ever seen since he transmigrated. And I'm like, oh! And I oop! So, there was that. And this conversation about the witches, he really didn't care too much about that. He just moved on and went to the Deweyville library. And at the Deweyville library, oh, wait. Before we go to the Deweyville library, we actually have a small section about Audrey, which surprised me because this part was never shown in the donghua. So it was Audrey, and she was sitting as a bystander watching a race, right? Like a horse racing, rich people hobby, stuff like that. And there's this guy who approaches her and was talking to her. They were like kind of friends, and now that she's a spectator, now that Audrey is a spectator, she acts more coldly, but at the same time she has to act nice towards him, right? She knows exactly what that guy wants. He is Viscount Klein is his name. And he's like, oh, you know what? I know this guy. He's a Beyonder, blah, 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 blah. Why don't you, meet up with him? And I don't know. I feel like he's just trying to hit on Audrey. And Audrey was like, ugh, this guy again. I'm already a Beyonder. Like, she didn't tell him that she was a Beyonder, but she's just like, yeah, okay, sure, Jan, sure, whatever. So she's like, but you know what? I do need information and connections, so I will take him up on the offer and hope that the guy that this dude, Viscount Klein, was talking about is an actual Beyonder and not just some random person that's gonna scam me. Okay? So she agreed to meet up at his place, at the music salon at his place. Yeah, so there's that. And then we go back to Klein, where he is at the Deweyville Library. And at the Deweyville Library, he pulled rank. He showed the people his police officer badge and was like, hey, I need your cooperation. I'm investigating this. So he's like, I need to know the records of the journals of who borrowed these books. And that's how he found out the name of the person who borrowed all the Hornassis books. And it was Sirius Arapis, a cloth merchant that resides in 19 Hoa Street. So there's a reason why I mentioned the Hoa Street, because in the next chapter, Klein realized the connection between the three people, Welch, Vincent, and Sirius Arapis. It turns out Welch stayed at Hoa Street, right? And the Divination Club is also at Hoa Street. And Sirius Arapis lives in Hoa Street. So that means Welch and Sirius are technically neighbors. And there's this thing where, people try to connect with their neighbors to network and stuff like that back in the good old days. So he's thinking that's probably what happened and how Sirius and Welch knows each other, because they're from the same area. And also because Welch is a banker and Sirius is a cloth merchant, there's bound to be moments for them, or like business thing for them to bond over, right? Because they both like making money. And then comes Vincent, and Vincent is a friend of Sirius. So there's that connection there. So it's really nice to read Klein's thought process. I really enjoy it, because you see how he puts everything together. He's really smart. I highly recommend you guys to read that novel. It's really good. And there's a lot of things that definitely is being skipped or glossed over in the donghua. So Klein is theorizing that perhaps it was because of Vincent that Welch actually got the Antigonus family book, because that's where he bought it from Vincent, right? Because Vincent is really in touch with all this mysticism stuff, right? So he's also thinking, what if Vincent is actually connected to a secret organization with the suspected evil god, the true creator? And he's just putting everything together and just theorizing, and it's just so fascinating to read through. Okay, moving on. Klein says goodbye to the librarians and says he'll come back if he finds any more clues. He actually goes out the door and passes by this tall man who was dressed in a double-breasted coat with its collars standing tall, like totally not suspicious at all. So they walk past each other. Klein glances at him and realizes, hey, that guy has some really messy eyebrows and also a pair of grayish blue eyes. And then, ding! He realized, holy shit, it's Sirius Arapis. Like, here, right now. What kind of luck is this? Isn't this a little bit too lucky? What the hell? So he's like, okay, what? So he was debating if he should confront Sirius Arapis. And he thought, okay, my muscles are kinda sore right now, and I think it would be best to, not confront him. Let me read you guys Klein's thoughts. He evaluated his physical condition and felt his aching sore muscles. Thus, he acted as though nothing had happened and continued walking towards the door. Well, we have to follow what our heart tells us. Safety matters. He is so funny, guys. And he's like, it doesn't really matter if I don't get in contact with Sirius Arapis right now, if he runs away. As long as he's in Tingen, I can find him. Because again, he is the world's best GPS tracker, right? So the man, Sirius, goes to the librarian and returns a book. The librarian looks at him and was like, oh shit, it's the criminal. So the librarian yells towards Klein and says, officer, the criminal is here. And Klein, who heard that, was like, fuck. So he reaches for his holster to pull out his gun and chases after Sirius, because what is he supposed to do? Just ignore the librarian and pretend he didn't hear? That'll be embarrassing, right? So they have a chase scene. The same thing happened in the donghua, where Sirius jumped out through the window and runs away. Klein follows after him and shoots him with his gun. He hits him, and Sirius struggles to run through a small alleyway. That's where Klein also follows him. And Klein, he's not shooting aimlessly, because he said that he's never actually practiced shooting at a moving target. So he is not confident that he won't hit a random passersby, because, you know, they are actually doing this in broad daylight. So he follows after Sirius in the small alleyway, and he's like, suspicious, because his spidey senses was telling him that there's a danger going on right now. Like, so in that moment, he actually sees Sirius halfway into like becoming a monster and attacking him, and he's like, oh shit, and he shoots Sirius several times, in fact, and then Sirius dies, basically. That's what happened. Well, technically he's not completely dead yet, because he tried to stand up, and Klein was like, what the fuck, I emptied all of my bullets towards this guy and he's still trying to stand up. So you know what Klein did? He started smacking Sirius with his cane, and that's how Sirius died. Anyway, that is it for this episode, I guess, this video. I hope you guys liked it. I really enjoyed reading all of these chapters, especially, you know, Klein's thought process. He is such a funny character. I really hope that stays the same in the future. He has some very, very interesting thought process. And yeah, what do you guys think of all the chapters we've read so far? And that's pretty much it. Before I go, please leave a like, subscribe, and a comment. It helps my channel out a lot. Check out my webcomic Dreaming of Aurora, even though it's on hiatus, if you have the time. And finally, thanks to my patrons, Robek, Vanarik, and Jayval Javelitska for the support. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!